It started as one of those rare, perfect nights. You know the kind. A warm kitchen, family laughter bouncing off the walls, the scent of Linda's famous pot roast lingering long after the last bite. Our son, Alex, had just turned 20, and though he'd insisted birthdays weren't a big deal, we managed to get him home from college for the weekend. "Dad," Alex grinned, "are you actually giving a toast?" He laughed, shaking his head, but his face softened as he looked at me. I knew he saw me as the strong, silent type. I wasn't one to make speeches, but tonight felt different, important. "Son," I began, lifting my glass. I could feel a lump in my throat already. How could I even begin to sum up 20 years? The scraped knees, the late-night talks, the fishing trips, the countless math problems we'd tackled side by side. "I'm proud of the man you've become," I said, my voice breaking a bit. "Proud to be your dad." Alex's cheeks flushed, and he dipped his head, but I caught the look in his eyes. Gratitude, pride, love. But then, just as I lowered my glass and looked across the table at Linda, my wife of 22 years, I noticed something strange. Her eyes were glassy, and there was a tightness around her mouth. A look that vanished almost as soon as it appeared, but not fast enough. My mind faltered, snagging on that flicker of something unreadable in her face. It was just a second, but it was enough to plant a seed of doubt that would grow far bigger than I could have imagined. In the days after Alex's birthday, that moment haunted me, twisting through my mind in quiet hours like a song you can't shake. Maybe it was just nerves, I thought. Maybe she was tired from the party. Or maybe it was something else. After 2 decades of marriage, I knew every one of Linda's expressions, every little shift in her mood. But this felt like a wall, a new one that hadn't been there before. "Mark, you're imagining things," I told myself more than once. But it was only a matter of time before I noticed the phone calls. Late at night, almost like she was waiting for me to fall asleep first. I'd lie there, heart pounding as her murmured words drifted through the crack in the door. I tried to ignore it, burying my face in the pillow, but I'd catch phrases here and there. "I'm sorry," she'd say. Or worse, "I can't keep doing this." One night, when I couldn't take it any longer, I confronted her. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, keeping my voice calm as I could, though my heart felt ready to burst. Linda's face went pale, her hand tightening on the phone. "It's nothing, Mark. Just an old friend," she mumbled, looking down, avoiding my eyes. "I didn't want to wake you." "An old friend," I said, trying to keep my tone light, even as the words landed like bricks in my chest. She nodded, smiling thinly. But there was something behind that smile, something raw, a sharpness that hadn't been there before. I didn't believe her, but I didn't press her either. In my gut, I knew something was wrong, and it wasn't long before my suspicion turned to action. One afternoon, when Linda was out, I searched through her things. I felt like a stranger in my own home, like a thief picking through drawers and closets, ashamed and sickened at my own mistrust. And then, tucked away in the back of our closet, behind a stack of old sweaters, I found it. A faded manila folder, bent and yellowed with time. Inside was a piece of paper that would tear my world apart. It was a paternity test. I scanned it, my vision swimming as I tried to make sense of the words. The result was clear. Alex wasn't my biological son. The test was dated only a month after he was born, meaning Linda had known all this time. She'd known, and she'd hidden it from me. For 20 years. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching that sheet of paper like it might crumble if I squeezed too hard. My pulse was a deafening drumbeat in my ears. Every memory, every proud fatherly moment I cherished with Alex crashed over me, heavy and twisted by betrayal. How could she have hidden something like this? How could she have lied to me? for 2 whole decades. When Linda came home, I was waiting. She barely got through the door before I thrust the paper in her hands. "What is this?" My voice shook. I didn't care. The dam had broken. Her face went white as snow. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Answer me, Linda. Who is he?" I was gasping, barely able to keep my composure. Tears filled her eyes, spilling over as she looked down at the test. Her hand shook. "Mark, I never wanted you to find out this way," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "So you knew? You knew all along," I said, my words coming out in a strangled cry. She nodded, wiping her tears with trembling hands. "Yes, I had a mistake. You were working so hard, doing so much for us, and I was alone and I was weak." Her voice was heavy with regret. "But when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know for sure if Alex was yours. But I was terrified of losing you. Couldn't bear the thought. So I took the test, but when it came back, I just couldn't. I couldn't destroy everything we had. So, you lied to me," I whispered, the weight of her words pressing down on me until I felt like I was suffocating. "You kept this from me. Let me believe he was mine. Let me love him. For 20 years. I stormed out that night. I walked and walked until my feet ached, the cool night air biting into my skin. I didn't know where to go. The world felt too big, too cold, and far too empty. My mind spun, tangled in memories tainted by betrayal. I thought of Alex's first steps, his little fingers clinging to mine. The first time I taught him to ride a bike, the fishing trips we took each summer, the countless times I told him he was my pride and joy. And now I felt like a fool, a stranger to my own family. It would take days for me to return, for my rage to quiet into a raw, aching sadness that filled every part of me. But in that stillness, as I sifted through memories, I found one truth that Linda's betrayal could never take from me: the love I felt for Alex. He was my son, no matter what a piece of paper said. I was his father, not because of blood, but because of a lifetime of love, laughter, and care. When I finally faced Linda again, it wasn't with anger, but with the quiet resolve of a man who had made his choice. She looked at me, her face etched with grief, regret lining every wrinkle. "We have 20 years, Linda," I said, my voice hoarse. "You lied to me. You hurt me. But we have 20 years. I can't throw that away." She collapsed into my arms, and for the first time in days, I held her, feeling the weight of our shared life settle around us. We would move forward, not because it was easy, but because love had bound us too tightly to do anything else. And when I saw Alex again, I hugged him like I'd never hugged him before, feeling the strength of our bond, knowing that nothing, no secret, no betrayal, could ever change that he was, and always would be, my son.